What's up, guys? We are in Orlando. We're at the Schluter booth. I got Andy with me. We're going to walk through a bunch of the new products that they have on the floor, but I also want to dig into how you guys train live here and how that translates back into the field for guys that are installing on a regular basis.
That sounds great. Yeah,
cool.
Let's do that.
Let's do it.
So a couple of new things, Nick, I'd like to feature here.
I love this black stuff. This is awesome.
This is what everybody's been asking for. We now have this in our our full complement of lines. You can see we have the shelves that can be installed.
Now, is that a powder coated finish?
It's sort of a powder coating. It's a proprietary type
proprietary. So secret. We can't talk about
it. But you could call it powder coating. That's pretty accurate.
Okay.
Lots of different lengths from 20 inches up to 72 inches coming out. Right now we have 48s in stock. Yep. Then we'll go from 48 to 72, about 4-inch increments.
Yeah. Similar to your stainless line.
Same idea.
Yeah.
And the whole thing about that is put the drain in as long as possible so that you can capture the water across the longest span as possible. But everyone's been asking for the matte black, so here it is in profiles, in our shelves, and now in the drains of all the different configurations. So
let me talk just about that proprietary finish, because I think about when you have paint and or powder coat's really hard to touch up. But also, if you're running thin set around this, where it has an aggregate in it, it can scratch. If it was painted, it would scratch relatively easy.
Right.
Is that kind of why it's a proprietary coating, to prevent that scratching?
That's exactly right, Nick. That's one of the things we have to key in on is what is the environment this is going to live in?
Right.
But two,
because they go in pretty early.
It does. And how does the installer treat this, and when does it put in the process of tiling? And yeah, we've got to make sure that it's not going to get scuffed up before the homeowner even gets a chance to use it.
Sure.
Yeah, so nice durable finish on those. So
yeah, this
you
will
can
pair
feel
well.
the texture, right? It's got a little bit of a feel to it.
Yeah.
So, of course, the closed grade is very, very popular.
I'm a big tile over, but every once in a while it doesn't work, or the client doesn't want it. So this is a great option for that, especially with the black fixtures.
There you go.
Cool.
Another new thing, however, we actually have a little display on it right here. It's a universal primer. Now, primers are pretty popular these days when you're using different types of underlayments like our Ditra and so forth, Ditra Heats. But it's just a good practice in many occasions where you're going to come into a job site where there's been a lot of dust residue. You think about when the tile setter shows up on the process of the build out. It's towards the end.
Yeah.
So, what's on the floor? How clean is it? Is it going to accept your bond? And this is something that we've been asked for quite a while.
Sure.
Since we brought out our own thin set line, it's like, where's your primer? So now we have a universal primer here that can be put over all kinds of different substrates. Going to give you a nice clean substrate, guaranteed to get a good bond, as you see in the video when you roll out the Ditra, for instance, in here.
So traditionally, and we were actually just talking about a project of ours and when that plywood went down compared to when we started installing our Ditra, but we were wetting that plywood. Taking a wet sponge, wiping the dirt off, vacuuming it, wiping it again. That basically bringing up that moisture for the thin set, I believe. Correct me if I'm wrong there.
Well, the water is giving the wood a little drink because you don't want the first drink of water from the bond coat to go in there. But it's really about what you mentioned was removing any potential bond breaker, any dust, any residue that was in there because of the time when the tile setter shows up. But on that particular project, you guys kept things pretty clean, and it was sort of a controlled environment, a lot more than, say, you get on a commercial application or even a big home build where somebody's doing a lot of homes in one development. You've seen the floors.
Yeah.
There's overspray. There's
everything.
Topping compound from the drywallers. The plumbers walk through and it was raining and there's mud and it's just an absolute mess. So this is kind of nice to have the to know that you're going to get a really good clean surface ready to bond to over tile, OSB, concrete, whatever you have.
So that's an existing tile, so you can go over it.
You can go right over it.
Gotcha.
And we've always said that at Schluter is you have an existing tile and it's down well and it's sound, and if you don't need to take it up, why would you take it up?
Especially with a decoupling membrane.
If you've got a Ditra, if you have an uncoupling membrane,
I said that wrong.
That's okay. If you have that uncoupling membrane there, and the tile is sound, why would you go through all the demolition?
You already have that movement that you need. As far as the primer, you mentioned something interesting, the commercial application. I feel as though with this product, you're probably going to see this specified by architects in commercial building because of failures that they've dealt with.
That's right.
Where in residential, it's probably a great step to take, but you're probably not going to see that specified by a residential architect as much.
You probably wouldn't, but take for instance multifamily homes,
right,
where they put down a gypsum-based screed for both
which
sound
has,
and fire.
Yeah, and which that.
Oh, it's so thirsty.
Yeah.
And the tile industry came to the conclusion years ago that, you know, we shouldn't directly bond tile to that gypsum. We have to put a membrane in.
Right.
And so now they're saying, well, the membrane manufacturers are saying, yeah, but if you're going to go over a gypsum, because it's so thirsty, and it doesn't have a lot of cohesive strength. So let's go ahead and prime it. So there's a good instance where it could be more of a residential, but it would be like a large project where you'd have like a condo project or a high-rise hotel where they're putting gypsum down for fire code and for sound, attenuation.
No, it makes complete sense.
So prime it, then you're ready to go with the Ditra.
How soon after are you applying thin set?
Minutes.
Minutes, okay. So this is done. This isn't someone that comes in, a week before or a day. You're putting this primer down and you're going right into tile mode.
By the time this guy gets this floor done, he could go back and start at the beginning and start putting the Ditra down. Gotcha. So it's going to flash off real quick.
Very cool.
There could be some job site conditions that might change that a little bit, but for the most part, you can just keep working, which is the whole idea behind the formula that we developed for.
Nice.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah.
What else we got?
What else do we got? Well, let's see. For all of our drains, you can see lots of different finishes. I'm not sure if all of your people that follow you are aware of all the different finishes that they come in.
I know I have a sample of that gray, white because I was trying to find one that matched a gray, white.
Oh, okay. So
sitting on my desk.
All right, yeah, so you can see the range of shades and colors in the grates, in the shelves, and even in all of the different line drain finishes with the different types of solid, curve, floral, pure, all of these different styles that you can
Interesting.
have.
I've actually never seen this thin profile drain, like the surround on the drain.
Right,
I've always seen this.
Well, that would be another development that happened a few years back. We always had a frame.
Sure.
And then we needed something that was pretty much frameless, and that's pretty darn close to frameless. Once it's in place, in the tile, you grouted it, you can hardly see it. So that was something that, again, the consumer, the design end of the spectrum, they really kind of like that idea. So then we came out with those.
Let me ask you this, and this might be something that you don't know, but as far as all of the drain bodies, is there one that flows better or collects water better?
That's a good question. They do have a little bit of a different flow rate between them, but that was one of the things about making the design. So something that your followers might not appreciate, that you can make a really neat design, but it also has to function, right? So
Same thing with like an HVAC vent.
Exactly.
You don't want it whistling, it needs to have enough free area. So you guys are looking at it from the fluid side.
Well, it actually has to in order to get the rating, the plumbing rating and so forth.
Yeah.
You do have to have a certain flow rate per minute. So we do have to actually abide by those too. So all designs are looked at, but then they're also tested to make certain that we have the right flow rate. So
something you said over there, and talking about making the drain as wide as possible, we oftentimes do the tiled in drain. It's just sleek looking, but what I've always liked is that it has that continuous channel all the way around, so when water's running down, it catches that edge, especially when that drain, say we can't have it against a wet wall, or it's if that drain's closer to where you maybe step out of the shower, you want that water's flowing in the direction that you don't want it to. So when you have that continuous line or similar to this, the it doesn't have the opportunity to kind of skip across that.
Right. It's intercepting the water.
Exactly.
That's what we want.
Right.
So in those applications where we do the tileable drain in there is the opportunity of the grout line basically is not grouted, clear across the front, and then on the other side of the piece of tile, there's another one there, so you can certainly intercept all the water as it comes through. We do recommend maybe a tiny bit of an elevation change between outside the shower and even though it's sloping towards that, to have just a tiny little bit of a bump or a lip. We also make some profiles.
I've seen that. It's an ADA product, right?
Yeah, one's ADA approved. It is just kind of an elliptical, semi-elliptical piece that will give you a little bit of a speed bump. Or actually, it does work as a dam. It'll slow the water down or stop it from running out onto the floor.
Right.
So those are things that you can do. And it's really popular to put that drain at the front of the shower to intercept the water as it comes out.
And like I said, oftentimes you're bound by that. We've done a lot of stuff in the brownstones in Boston. When you're on a concrete slab, you actually have to build the floor up rather than cut it down, or framing gets in the way and our drain is at our door. And then we end up with, you know, that drain right at the door. But I've seen it because we use the Deco SG a lot.
Oh, okay,
we bury all our glass, whether it's in the ceiling, the wall, or the floor, or sometimes all of it. So we're burying all that glass. So oftentimes we're looking at the profiles that you guys have, and actually there's one that you have that has a silicone rise to it, so like a 1-inch silicone rise.
Right, and then it flops over if someone's going to be wheeled across it, for instance.
And we've looked at that for projects where, you know, especially when they don't do a door and there's no sweep on that door, we've looked at utilizing that basically in continuation of the Deco SG, and then converting into, I'm not sure what the name is, but it's that silicone. That silicone riser piece.
Oh, right, yeah. It's a WS profile from our product line. Yeah.
Cool.
You know, that segues us perfectly into this little PlayStation we have over here, Nick.
So one of our most popular topics, whether it's in video or on social media, is how we do frameless glass. And it's so interesting because I don't find it that hard now, probably because we've done it so many times. But I've had, you know, even clients. We're working with one gentleman right now where he called. He was like, "Hey, can I just pay you to come over and walk me through how you do that?" And I'm like, I feel like we've done a pretty good job explaining it in video. But it's just interesting, like it you know. This is the thing, like this is why I love coming to these shows and talking to you, is that, you know, there's so many products and so many things that you guys have coming out in development, or, you know, sometimes available that I don't even know about. And when I find out, it makes our job more interesting. We have the ability to be more creative, things like that. So what do we got going on here?
Well, to your point, I think it's important that as a manufacturer, we look at the tile setter or the tiling part of the job, not only from the perspective of the installer, which has always been where we come from, but also now the consumer has special ideas of what they want the project to look like, the finished product. And they work with design professionals. And when we work with design professionals, we find that they have a certain mindset. So it's really neat that a lot of the stuff we've been coming out with lately is where we can get the design the consumer wants, but also have the function that the tile setter requires. You can't put it in and have it not work. So like our Deco SG, where you're putting that track down for the frameless glass. It's a perfect example. And this is what you were just speaking of, where in many cases you come into a job that you're looking at and it's like, well, there's no way for us to recess that floor. But they don't want a curb. They want a walk-in shower. No curb, no door. They want that zero entry type of look, right? So how do you do that? Well, here we've got a little display showing for anyone who's attending here, they can come up and look at the different ways that they can tackle this.
Right.
And we're going to show that when we go back over to our demo stage, and we're going to show a couple of those every day. And say, here's one way you could do it. If you have this opportunity, you can go this way. If you don't have that, we'll try this. So we'll be doing that. So that's what we're showing here, is different ways to do this, whether the drains at the back wall, maybe at the face of the bench, maybe it's intermediate placement where you've got a slope coming down to a center channel, or as we were talking about, at the front too. So how do you want to do it? Let's give you some options on how you could go about building that. And this is builders really key in on this and go, I mean, I don't have to drop my subfloor necessarily.
Right.
You know, it's a budgetary problem, or it's a structural thing, like you said. You've got a structural concrete slab. You can't go start cutting into those type of things. It could be just where the joist lands and how the house is framed. And, you know, you can't be cutting joists. I'm sure a lot of them talk about that.
Yeah, and it's like, you know, for us, especially as we're getting into more new construction, we are trying to do more preparation for a recessed subfloor, as we're calling it, basically dropping the subfloor in between our joists to gain that extra 3/4 of an inch, or 1 1/8 we're typically using for subfloor.
And that's probably one of our most popular assemblies that we have, is where we actually have a cut sheet that a builder could use, a remodeler, and it shows you how to gain at least your subfloor thickness.
So you have that in literature.
We do have that in literature, and we can actually show how to do that.
Yeah, so that's what I'm talking about, like talking about you guys being a resource for us. We've talked about recessing our subfloor. Many of our projects, we're cutting our subfloor out and we're dropping it in between our floor joists gaining us the thickness of our plywood, whether it's 3/4 inch and 1/8, and then we're able to pitch from that higher elevation down to a drain. Now you're limited on how far that drain can be because you want a minimum pitch to an extent, but most showers are going to work within that. But they have the literature to walk you through that.
We do that. So, little PlayStation here, but also, as I said, in our actual innovation workshop, we cover that and say, this is how you can go about doing that. Here's all of your options on going about putting in that shower that the consumer wants, that doesn't have a door, has no curb, and there are different ways to do that.
So I saw something recently on social media, and I want to talk about it, the floor heat. You guys made a change to your floor heat. It used to be 3 nubs. Now you can go to 2. So walk me through that. Is there, we have this set up somewhere we can look at?
Let's go look at the Ditra Heat. It's right over here.
Because I remember, specifically me personally, had made one of my installers, I was like, you got to take the cable out, it's too close together. So that changed, but there's a reason why it changed, right?
There's a couple of reasons why it changed. One, we actually had to go to the powers that be in the electrical world and say, this is what we want to do, and the requirement is a maximum amount of wattage per square foot that you can actually emit. And we found that as long as we do 3 studs,
which this is right
Those are the 3 studs, and then we can alternate, and the next row over could actually just be 2 studs. We could have run this cable right here.
So it would be alternating 3, 2, 3, 2?
Exactly. So at 3, 2, 3, you're actually still under the maximum wattage that you can emit, but you do get some extra efficiencies.
Sure.
We're talking about concrete on grade, a slab, above grade. It doesn't matter. Concrete mass in general, of course, is going to absorb a lot of your therm.
Right.
So
you don't have it here, but you actually have one specifically designed for concrete, because this fleece backing isn't going to provide much insulation.
Right.
But you actually have a thicker.
This one right here.
Here it is. Yeah, it's a thicker fleece.
It's called Ditra Heat Duo. Came out in 2016, and you can see that it has a different backing on it. And that backing will give you not only some sound attenuation for multi-unit housing, it actually has one of the highest delta contributions for sound attenuation of a membrane this thin that also supports the tile under load. It can give you a high support under load rating, which is kind of rare.
Was this designed for sound over insulation?
Actually, it was actually to be a thermal break. Primarily was the thermal break that we're speaking about.
But you're seeing all these other advantages.
We want the heat to come up and heat and warm the tile. We don't want it to all go down into the slab. So we did that, and then we're like, well, we should test that for sound, and it came back with phenomenal ratings. We're like, this is amazing. So that's why we changed its name to Duo.
Gotcha.
So it's a thermal break, and it's also sound attenuation. But yeah, that's what you're looking at there. So if you did that and you did 3-2-3, you're going to get a lot of efficiency out of that floor warming for initial heat up. People turn on their floor, they want it warm now. They want to have to wait a while. So this is really going to help with that to make it more efficient with the initial heat up.
Now, have you guys found that, especially increasing that, you've been able to heat the space? Like as space heating? I know a lot. So we've had projects where they've actually eliminated heat in rooms, and they've like, I just want to do floor heat. And we explain this is designed for comfort. And you know, naturally with radiant floors, I think they're one of the more comfortable heating sources, because you're warming kind of feet up, and your body feels warmer because the floor is warm. But have you guys looked at that as a replacement to other sources of heat within that room?
We can mention that, but it's only anecdotally. We really can't come out and claim, and no one that makes an in-floor heat electric system like this can make that claim that it's the primary heating source for the space. But plenty of anecdotal evidence that shows that when you do have that much mass that's emitting that kind of warmth, you certainly don't need to have your, say, a forced air heating system or even a baseboard heat, radiator, that type of thing. They do not need to be turned up anywhere near as much. I can say that for my own home, where we completely turn the registers closed in the winter when I turn the floor on in our master bathroom, because there's so much warmth coming off of that floor. So it does do it, but no one can make that claim as primary.
Right, and it's going to be dependent on the home too, where we're building a passive home in Rhode Island right now. So that home's going to be super tight, super efficient, and if we have this in the bathroom, that bathroom's going to heat up. The heat's not going to escape anywhere because the home is built so well.
It's going to be very comfortable for them. Another thing about the 3-2-3 stud spacing is nice, because if you don't quite figure your cable right, and you're like, oh, I got my whole floor run with cable, and I've got this.
No one's ever done that.
No one's ever done that. It was the number one thing and complaint from the installers. They're like, I got the cable down,
Andy,
and I still have a little bit of cable left.
I have so many extra rolls of cable in my office, my shop, because we've not every job, but there's been a handful of jobs where we're like, oh, we underestimated or overestimated that.
Sure. Now you have the luxury. You get to the end of the job and you're like, oh, I got extra cable, and I know I can't cut the cable because it's designed to work by its length.
Right.
So now you have the option, pull up a little bit of cable, go to 3-2-3 stud spacing, use up the rest, and you're done.
That's great.
That's something else you could do.
Has there been any changes to thermostats or anything like that?
Well, we do have the Wi-Fi, of course.
Yep.
That's nice to have, where you can control it right from somewhere else if you want to.
The nice thing about the Wi-Fi is we found that we're not even installing our thermostats in view anymore. So a lot of times we're
in the room.
Yeah, we're putting them either in an access panel. Inside the vanity is a great spot, I think. You put it inside the cabinet. If you ever have to access it, it's easy enough to do so. But yeah, we're setting it and literally setting it and forgetting it. And the client, maybe it downloads the app or doesn't. And the only time we ever get a call is, hey, my heat's not working, and it's usually something else. Whether a breaker popped or something like that.
Right. That's a nice convenience for the consumer to just.
Right.
The floor's warm when they want it warm, and they
now,
don't
is there
even have to
any
look
issue
at
with
it.
leaving it and just letting it run all the time?
No issue at all. No issue at all.
Cool.
So that's kind of nice for them to just kind of set it.
Yeah.
Or you set it for them, like you said. You could set it up. First time I used it, I had never had any experience with it. It actually has a setup.
Okay.
And I didn't grow up in the computer age.
Yeah.
That's something I had to learn as an adult. So I'm not always the best at doing that. And I actually was relieved to actually go right through the wizard, and I set the thing up in about 4 minutes.
Great.
It was done. I'm like, well, that was very simple.
It's funny. So
now it's done.
Andy and I were off camera. We're talking about a project that we just had a warranty issue on. But that project, we had one of my home care tech, Matt, called me and said, hey, where's the thermostat? They want to check the heat. And I said, oh, it's in this access panel in the room, and the access panel is basically hidden, so they had to remove this access panel. Long story short, the client was like, I don't have access to that. I've never downloaded the app, and the floor was set on 84. I'm like,
okay.
I can tell you right now, we did not leave that floor on 84. That's comfortable, super comfortable, nice and warm, but we did not. Like, I know they at one point went in there and adjusted it, cranked it up, and kept it super warm.
84 is pretty warm for a floor.
Yeah.
You would think, oh, that doesn't sound very warm. Our body's 98.6, right? 84.
Yeah.
No, if you stand on an 84 degree floor, Fahrenheit, on your bare feet,
I can feel it through
okay.
my shoes. It's like, all right, this is nice. Right? Maybe thin shoes, but with that being said, let's talk about your training center.
Yeah, let's go and take a look at what we're going to be doing over here today. Throughout the week here at the Builder Show, we're going to be doing demonstrations, showing quite a few of our products. But what you're looking at here on the stage is two different scenarios for how you could put in a shower. This is what we talked about earlier, Nick. You can see here that we've actually recessed the floor.
Yeah.
As you were speaking about, as far as dropping the floor and then having the layer of plywood go in between the joists instead of sitting on top.
Right.
You can't see it right now because that's a sacrificial layer we're going to remove.
But you can see that you're gaining essentially that 3/4 of an inch of that.
So our new thin trays, you can see that once you put that in where you have that 3/4 of an inch that you gained, and then we use Ditra Heat or our Ditra XL, this is popping up right now.
Sure.
We now have a flush transition right in here. So you're able to give the consumer that barrier-free or that curbless right into the shower here with really minimal kind of engineering or restructuring of the floor, if you will.
So something you just mentioned, Ditra XL. Ditra. Am I saying it wrong?
Ditra, yeah. Ditra.
Every time I say it Ditra, and people correct me. So it's Ditra. But is that the same thickness as Ditra Heat?
Very close. I can actually show you some samples here.
Ditra XL is thicker, and it's designed for scenarios like this when you're trying to get a flush condition. Is that right?
Right. So this is the original Ditra here. You can see it's just a little over 1/8 of an inch thick. So that was the original. Well, this is the secondary design.
Sure.
We don't even make the original design Mr. Schluter designed. but that was the original uncoupling membrane. We kind of introduced that whole idea to the tile industry.
And this
about
is that XL.
removing. And there's the XL. And what the XL was originally designed for is we're finding that the builders are moving the joists farther apart than 16 inches on center.
Oh, interesting.
19.2 on center.
Yep.
24-inch on center. And Ditra XL will allow you to put the tile down over the Ditra XL, and the Ditra XL could be bonded directly to the subfloor, and you don't have to add an additional layer to get more stiffness because there's more performance in XL than there is regular Ditra.
So this can span further.
If your joists are farther apart, then you could go into the XL, and we have that all online in our installation.
So for what we're typically using it for is when we have a condition that an adjacent floor is higher than what this would allow us to flush out at, so we'll increase this, or the heat, like you said, is very close.
Yeah, we do have quite a few installers that use this just because they need more build out.
Sure.
To flush out with an adjacent floor covering, like 3/4 inch hardwood, for instance.
Right.
And they have a tile, smaller format. They're going to be lower than the 3/4 hardwood if they use this in their tile, but if they use this, now they're going to be flushed out.
Right.
So yeah, you're
right
there.
That's a great point to bring up, is that when we are on our projects, we want to make sure that we're bringing that tile to site as soon as possible, and then we're going to bring a sample of the XL, the traditional, or the heat, to make sure that we are flushing out with our conditions. It's important to think that stuff through ahead of time.
Right. So this is just a little thinner than the XL, but so close. You can see here that we're going to get our flush installation with that, using that. And then here's the Duo, as we were talking about earlier, that has both sound and thermal break on the backside.
You can see all 4 of them here. Let me line you up, Doug. So, I want to talk about, can I grab that and bring it over here?
Sure, sure.
So something that we're doing a lot, and this reminded me of it. I'm gonna grab this, because this is exactly, I think this is what this sample's for. But a lot of times you're seeing a lot of the heat in the bathroom, in the space that is outside the shower, but we've been running all of our heat cable into our shower. You can't leave it like that. You can't just run the ditch, because this is technically a waterproof layer, as long as you're taping the seams and things like that.
Correct.
But this cannot be in your waterproof, in your underneath tile in the shower.
Right, and it's not from the manufacturer. That's just
electrical.
It's an electrical rule that you have to put a waterproofing on it.
Right. So if I didn't have heat cable, I could actually use an uncoupling membrane, tape the seams, and use that as my shower base prior to tile.
Actually, you could, yes.
But if you're running the heat cable, it's really nice to run that heat cable from in the bathroom to the shower. And for me, the reason why I think it's nice is that when you step into the shower, the tile's not cold. And it's silly things, but it's like, order a little bit longer cable, get that floor to be one continuous temperature all the way throughout, and if you want, run it up the bench and on the bottom of the bench too.
Yeah.
So that way when you sit down, your butt's not cold.
Very popular to run it up the front face of a bench. You can see we have some different sizes of benches in here, and then across the top of the bench, back down and cover the whole floor. And if you do that, that's why we're showing this other piece of our Curdy membrane that would go on here, and you'd put that over the top of it, then you would tile directly on that. Of course, this Curdy membrane will bond into the other Curdy that you put on the walls, on any kind of vertical, with our Curdy band, which is what we're going to be demoing here at the show.
Yeah, you're going to take that, essentially get it into this section.
There you go. Yeah. And we would put a piece even to comply with that. Put a strip up and over.
That's a great, at least visual to show that from the room, getting it into the shower, you can go right up and over a foam curb, or if it's curbless, it's pretty straightforward to get it into that space.
And two things we're also showing here, Nick, if you can see outside in what would be, let's call it the dry area, because we do have a curb here, is we actually have the end splice where the cable terminates out here, outside in the dry area.
Sure.
And also, we talked about the cold lead splice. It's out here too. That's a requirement, that it's not in the floor, or it's in the floor, it's not in the wall, it's not in a wet area. Because that gives us the opportunity to do, say someone comes in here and for some reason damages the cable. They cut the cable while cleaning the excess thin set out of the grout line, for instance. Or the plumber shows up and drills some holes to mount a toilet that has more than 2 bolts for mounting, or a door stop that has to be put in, and they drill a hole and they happen to hit the cable. We can repair that.
You can?
Yes, we can, if it's outside the wet area. And also, if the cold lead splice goes, if the end splice has a problem, we can repair those now. So that's kind of a nice luxury to have.
That is, and I want to go back because you smiled when you said we talked about the cold splice, and I'm going to just admit it here, is that we've made the mistake before. We've actually had this cold splice outside. It was actually in a wall cavity, and Tim from Schluter actually came out to our job site to help us walk through some issues that we were experiencing and called attention to it. And he said, hey, listen, like, you know, this needs to be in and under the mud. And I said, walk me through why. And what it comes down to is the electrical code.
It's electrical code.
And this is basically the power feeding what is then the radiant cable or the heat cable.
That's right.
So this right here is your splice, and that splice by code has to be underneath tile, meaning it has to be adhered in the thin set or the mud.
That's right, because you think about how this whole system works. All of the heating cable, we spread our thin set, our bond coat, over this, and then we set our tile over. So now we have the mass of the thin set when it dries out, and the actual mass of the tile drawing therms out of the cable as it's generating heat.
That's just
and
in no man's land.
And this, since it's going from where it doesn't generate heat to where it does, that potentially is actually generating some heat itself. So therefore, it needs to be in the thin set under the tile to actually draw therms away from it.
So I want to go. All right. So now I want to go back to the repair because I've never heard that. And every time we've done a door stop in the tile floor, we run that heat way up. We get our infrared camera, which is good practice anyway.
That's good.
But the
practice.
rare case, and I want to believe that we've had an issue where we never ended up not replacing it because we're like, we damaged it. It's a one and done. You can't repair it. Walk me through how do you go about repairing the heat cable?
Well, we do have equipment that we have scattered all across the U.S. and Canada, where our actual field reps can go out with this equipment and, like you said, turn the floor on. And we have different types of equipment, some that send charge through the cable where we can find the break, others, like you said, kind of more like an infrared type of camera, called a fluorer, where we can actually see the image of the cable under the tile, and we can pinpoint the break. We can remove that tile and get right into that spot and do a spot repair on that cable. You can only do so many per cable length, but yes, we are able to repair those cables on site and get them fixed. We don't do it, but we do have the equipment to find it, and then we can turn it over to a qualified electrician, and they can come in. We supply them with the splice setup. They can go in, do the repair, turn it on immediately after the repair, make certain everything's working. Then it's time, okay, tile person can come back in and they can finish it up. So it is repairable, which is nice.
I mean, I feel like the everything we've talked about today is great, but that right there is, I feel like, information that a lot of people don't have, because I've never heard that. I've always thought that if it's damaged, it's dead. We can never go back. But you mentioned your field tech and things like that. Last week I did a post on Instagram and I was talking about how the industry itself, I don't think, does a good enough job on our end as like the builders, the contractors, of utilizing the resources that you guys offer. And not only a display here at the Builder Show, but you guys offer training, on a regular basis, locally. Is that right?
Yes, we do. All over North America, we put on training courses, various subjects. Our most popular one is called our Innovation Workshop. Okay. It's a 2-day workshop, and there's there's a part 1 and a part 2. So it's to do the entire Innovation Workshop, you are giving up 4 days of your schedule, but it is invaluable information that we give. It's not just on how-to Schluter products. It's about the tile industry in general.
Right.
Why the tile industry has certain codes and regulations and standards. So you learn a lot of that. You learn not only how to put something in, but why we would do it in a certain way. And we offer over 300 of those a year.
That's
somewhere
a lot.
Yes. Yeah. So it's a big endeavor, but we felt it was important to educate the installer, the builder. This is how you do it. This is why you do it that way. And it's a free course. They just have to get themselves there and back. We put people up, we feed them, and they get all of this training. There's a lecture, there's demonstrations, And then there's hands-on. The attendees actually get to work with the material and learn how to use it and put it in right. So great opportunity, a lot of training to the industry.
Who would you say is your biggest, I would assume most likely tile installers, right?
A lot of tile installers.
What about if, I'm a builder, I have project managers, superintendents, carpenters, would it be valuable? I would assume it would be valuable for them as well.
Absolutely, very valuable for them. The second biggest group we have are actually remodeling. Lots and lots of remodelers come there because they are involved in every aspect,
right?
And maybe even do all the work themselves. They have no other subs. It could be in many cases. So that's a big group too. But as you said, builders, we do get superintendents that come because they need to be up to speed on this stuff. They need to know enough about it if they're watching someone on their job site to go, can we talk about what you're doing there?
See, this is exactly what I was talking about last week, and I actually sat down with my team and I explained to them, listen, we as superintendents, your job as a superintendent, you need to make sure that you feel comfortable with the way something is being installed. You need to make sure that you understand how something is being installed. The way to do that is obviously the resources that are available. So if we're installing a particular tile, pull up those resources, find out how they recommend installing it. If we're installing a product from Schluter, we're going to read about that and make sure that we're doing it properly. But say we don't do that. Say we skip a step and we have an issue. You guys are there for us to lean on, right? What is that process?
Well, we do have...
Besides the 911 call. And I say, Andy, I got an issue and I need help to fix it.
Yeah, we get those. We get those.
Now I have your phone number, so I'm just going to text you.
You do. You just text me all the time. I'm there for you. No, really, I still get them. I was in sales with the company for a number of years, and I still have people that call me when they have an installation question or they're in a panic or whatever it happens to be. So, yeah, we have, 150, let's just say, of salespeople all around the U.S. that are there. They all have cell phones. They all have tablets. You can contact them all the time. They spend a lot of time being more of a consultant than a salesperson. Because who we hire for these roles, for the most part, are tile setters that did it for a living, know what it takes to get it done and get the job done correctly, move on to the next one, make a living, support your family, everything that you're supposed to be doing. And these guys come from that. So it's great to have them there as not really salespeople, but more of really consultants. Say, hey, I got this job coming up. What do you think? What would be the best approach? What kind of methods of installation? What kind of material should I be using here? And even if it's not ours, we still give that advice. We say, well, this is the way you should really be approaching this job.
And that's exactly our experience. We had that complicated project, last year, and we walked through the proper way to put things together. We had some unconventional details that aren't warrantable. Or you can't have a warranty on it if warrantable, maybe is the word. But either way, there was details that no one's going to say, hey, I can't guarantee it. However, this is how I would go about it for your best possible outcome. And that's what I really appreciated. And then flip to a year later, we're dealing with a small warranty issue. Same thing. They're there to offer guidance on how we can correct it and maybe call attention to the things that we could have improved on. That for me and for my supers and our installers and our partners, we all can learn from and make sure that we improve from it.
That's great. That's exactly who we want to be. We're really there for the remodeler, for the builder, for the tile installer. Say, hey, if you have a question, if you have a problem, please let us know, and we want to be there to help you through it.
Awesome, Andy. I appreciate it. Good luck with the show.
Well, thanks very much. I'm glad you guys came by.
Thanks. Guys, if you guys want any more information on Schluter products, make sure you click in the link below. If you have any questions specific to some of the installs that we've done, make sure you drop a comment. We'll be sure to dig into it in a future install. This is the product that we use on every one of our jobs. Stay tuned for the next episode.